JSP version 3 4AG valve covers. Today we're going to go over some of the differences between the version 3 valve cover and the version 2 valve cover, including some of the new features that we packed inside this cover. We're also going to show all of the things that are included in the kit and how to install it on your car. At first glance, you might not catch all the differences between the version 3 and the version 2 valve cover, but there is almost nothing that is the same between the two. It's a complete redesign from version 2 to version 3. The only thing that kept from version 2 to version 3 is the fitment of the gasket underneath. From the inside, you'll notice there's a big difference. On the version 3 valve cover, the valve cover itself is entirely pocketed all the way out. On the version 2 valve cover, we've left some bracing on the inside for additional strength. Through our design process on the version 3 valve cover, we were able to eliminate that design and that strength without losing any integrity of the valve cover. The new version 3 valve cover is just as strong as the version 2. We were able to keep that strength in the new version 3 valve cover and cut all of that weight out by tapering the sides of the valve covers more than the version 2 version. So on the version 2 valve covers, the taper angle on the side of the valve cover is only a 3 to 4 degree draft, while on the new version 3 valve cover, it's a 7-degree draft, significantly more of an angle. As you look inside, you'll also see that our baffle design has changed significantly. Our previous design was a plate that was installed on the rear section of the valve cover only and had some holes in it that were used for diverting oil. But while it was very good, it could still be improved. The new version 3 baffle extends over halfway up the valve cover. This allows us to use these louvers that we've installed to divert the oil over a longer distance. Spacing out the louvers gives us better diversion of the oil so it's not all situated in one space. The reason this is important is because we use these baffles not only to prevent oil from exiting the valve cover through the breather, but since both of our valve covers have the ability to have an oil cap on them, the oil has to be able to drain into the valve cover from the outside. So these louvers do a great job of allowing oil in without allowing oil out. After they're laser cut, these baffles are then zinc plated so they don't have any corrosion or rust in the future. Moving to the outside, like I mentioned earlier, the outside of this valve cover is in no way the same as the version 2. It's a complete redesign. Just looking at the profile itself, you can see on the version 2 valve cover, it has a slow taper from the nose of the valve cover down towards the center, while the version 3 valve cover has a flat section on top and then a more aggressive taper down to the middle. The version 3 has a new angular nose, while the version 2 has a square nose. From the top, you can see that the new version 3 on the left is much narrower than the version 2 on the right. This is one way that we were able to save weight on the new covers. Previously, the valve cover grommets were countersunk into these valve covers, while the new version has the sides of the valve cover open. What this does is makes easy removal when you're ready to take your valve covers off and service your engine. We've also added a draft to the back of the version 3 valve cover. This is mostly cosmetic, but also reduces a little bit of weight. Another new feature on all the version 3 valve covers is the new raised lettering. In our attempt to mimic the OEM look, we decided to spend additional time engraving these embossed letters on the tops of both valve covers. Both the Toyota 1600 and Twin Cam 16 valve take extensive machining with tiny tools, but in the end is a result that we really like. So here's what you receive. You're going to receive a right side and left side valve covers, one oil cap, one breather, one center coil plate, a valve cover gasket, coil spacers for the individual coil options, all the hardware needed to mount the coil plate and coils, and new valve cover grommets with acorn nuts. Before doing the installation, there's a couple of things to note. One thing that you should be aware of is that the breather and oil cap that are included are interchangeable. So the thread of the adapter for the breather and the thread for the oil cap are the same. So you can put a breather on either side, or you can put the oil cap on either side. This also gives you the option, if you're running a dry sump, to have 2 caps with no breathers, or if you want additional breathing on your setup, you can put 2 breathers and no oil cap. And to install the oil into the engine, you would just remove the breather when you're filling oil. Previously, our center coil plate gave you the option to either run spark plug wires with your distributor or run 1ZZ Toyota coils. On the version 3, we've also added the option for Toyota 1NZ coils. Let me show you the difference. The Toyota 1ZZ and 1NZ coils are a great option for going coil on plug with your 4AG. They have similar coil output and just slight cosmetic differences. The 1ZZ coil on the top has an angled plug sticking up, while the 1NZ coil on the bottom has a straight plug. The 1ZZ coil has an offset mounting bracket, while the 1NZ coil has an inline coil mounting. Those coil mounting brackets are also offset differently from the rubber sealing gasket. So we've included two sets of offsetting spacers so that when you install the coils, use the shorter ones for the 1NZ and the longer ones for the 1ZZ coils. The first step to installing the valve cover is installing the gaskets. Start by inserting the round part of the valve cover into the front of the valve cover first. Press it down into the groove. This can feel like a tight fit, but it goes in if you press firmly. After getting the nose of the valve cover seal in, then you can start working your way towards the back. Rub your fingers along the seal to make sure that there aren't any high spots or bumps that need to be worked out. After the gasket's installed both covers, then it's ready to install. Before you install the valve covers onto your engine, you need to make sure that the valve cover sealing surface is really clean. No oil can be left on this surface, otherwise you may have leaks. Also, any RTV sealant that is remaining on the cylinder head where the cam cap assembles to the front of the valve cover needs to be removed. After you've removed all of the excess silicone, then you can go in and apply a new layer of Toyota Bond or gray RTV sealant where the cam cap meets the cylinder head. Just these cracks right here is the only area that requires a sealant when installing the valve covers. Once the sealant is installed and all of the surfaces are clean of all oils, it's time to install the covers. Slide the covers over the posts of the valve cover and press them down. Next, take the included grommets and install all 8 of them. Sometimes if the grommets are stubborn to go down, you can take the 10mm socket you're going to use to put the acorn nuts on and just press from the top. This can help seat them onto the valve covers. Follow that up by installing the acorn nuts. Slowly tighten down the covers until they're snug. Then we're going to come back with the torque wrench and give them one final torque. After the valve covers are snug, then you're going to go back with your torque wrench. The recommended torque spec for these M6 fasteners is about 7 foot-pounds, or we're going to do 85 inch-pounds with our small inch-pound torque wrench. With the covers mounted, now it's time to install the coil plate. The coil plate installs without any gasket or seal. It just uses 6 M6 screws to hold it down to the valve covers. For installing the coil plate, you're going to use the 6 shorter M6 button head screws. If you're using the original distributor, the OEM spark plug wires install the same as the factory valve covers. Just install the plug wire onto the plug and work the seal into the center plate. As you press the spark plug wire down, you should see the lip of the seal seating inside of the coil plate. If you're not using a distributor with spark plug wires, then you're going to be using the individual coils. Let's install the 1ZZ coils first so you can see which spacers to use. In my experience, the easiest way to do this is just by installing the coils first, loosely. You'll notice the 1ZZ coils will appear to be in line with all of the plugs sticking up like this. This will make it so that the mounting bracket lines up with the hole that's offset to the exhaust side valve cover. Next, we're going to take the longer button head screws and the longer spacers that are included. If you look at these spacers, you'll notice that one side has a heavy chamfer and the other side does not. This heavy chamfer is going to go down towards the coil plate. Slide the spacer underneath the ignition coil and then install the button head screw. Do this for all 4 coils. With all 4 coils installed loosely, now you can align them straight and tighten them down. The installation process for the 1NZ coils is the same as the 1ZZ coils, but you're going to use the shorter spacers. Let me show you. You'll start by taking the ignition coil and mounting it the same, sliding it over the spark plug. And as you rotate it around, instead of going to the hole that's closest to the exhaust side valve cover, you're going to go to the hole that's more forward facing. What this is going to do is it's going to take all of these coils that normally, if they were in line, the plugs would run into each other, and turn them just slightly so that your plug that connects to your wiring harness can just offset each coil. This is going to make it so you don't have any interference with your plugs. Just like before, install the coil first and then take the spacer. These shorter spacers also have a big chamfer on one side and small chamfer on the other. That big chamfer, again, goes down towards the center plate. Then you install the screws. Here's what it looks like with the 1NZ coils installed. I actually like these coils a little bit better because they're lower profile and the look ends up just being a little bit nicer than the 1ZZ coils. Both of them function very similar, and if you already have the 1ZZ coils, there's no real advantage to switching to the 1NZ except for that cosmetic appearance. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about these valve covers, please feel free to reach out via email or through our JSP Fab Instagram page.